No such thing as a moral victory, first and foremost. And I think that's a perfect place to start. This was an encouraging loss. This was the most encouragement that I've had following a loss when it comes to the offense all year. This is now 2 straight weeks. We have a similar game plan. 2 straight weeks. We have a similar approach. 2 straight weeks now. We have a different result. We have a different script when it comes to the game playing out. Yet, we have consistency when it comes to the game plan as far as play calling and execution out there. For 2 straight weeks, we have now formed an identity when it comes to this football team. And that is amazing. We have now a run-heavy team that's not asking their quarterback to be the be-all, end-all in the air. And that was a gigantic step forward. Yes, they lose the game. We'll talk specifically about what went wrong on defense. My goodness, a lot went wrong on defense once again, reverting back to this soft, unnecessarily soft defense. But for Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, the two key cogs of this team that we want to see improve, that we want to see form some sort of identity on offense and connection with other players with Hurts' case, and also just figuring out what this offense is globally under Sirianni. We're starting to get that for 2 straight weeks now. And as critical as I've been, as you have been out there, it's time to recognize that this offense came in and did something positive, really proper and positive. And yes, a tight loss to the Chargers, but man, they look good. And even when Jalen Hurts missed a throw or two, and it really wasn't more than that, the offense was consistent. Devontae Smith, that relationship, that established connection against the Chargers' pass defense, which isn't terrible by any means. Hurts to Smith was in live performance. And it was awesome to see Smith get into the end zone because it continues to validate how dangerous he can be week in and week out. The offense moved. No Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell back in the fold, Boston Scott and Jordan Howard exponentially so. The run game definitely made itself known, and that was huge because you knew you had that advantage. They attacked the Chargers defense at its weakest points. And what an awesome thing to see, was it not? What a super cool thing to see when even when you can sit at the edge of your couch and get so close, right? So close to a victory and had that pit in your stomach back and that feel, that tingle down your neck back, like you were actually watching a game that mattered. And man, this Eagles team could actually win this game. You got it. You got that feeling back because of the second half that the offense had. Jalen Hurts and the run game, continued commitment to the run game. The fact that Hurts was able to make a couple of key passes as well. Awesome to see this offense continue to show up when necessary. And look, Hurts getting some big drives, some big throws in the air in the second half, as well as on the ground. That didn't come when they were down by 20 or 30. That came in a tight game against a defense that was still playing hard, that was still playing its starters, that wasn't playing soft prevent just to get out of there with a victory. Very impressive to see Jalen Hurts play arguably one of his most, if not the best game we've seen as a pro, where he wasn't asked to do a ton. And still a key cog in this wheel that moved the ball. That was nowhere near the issue. You want to know what the issue was? We've got now the fifth time a quarterback's throwing for over 75 completion percentage against this Eagles defense. Fifth time this year that's happened. As disappointing as it is when it happens once, as unfortunate as it is after it happens twice, as unforgivable after it happens 4 times, 5 times. They've only played 9 weeks. 5 times? That's more than 50%. This is unquestionably the worst thing that's happening week in and week out with this Philadelphia Eagles team. The defense, Jonathan Gannon, this soft defense, allowing quarterbacks to do whatever the hell they want. It is a flat-out embarrassment. It is humiliating to watch this thing. And I can't imagine if you're Jalen Hurts or if you're Nick Sirianni or if you're Howie Roseman or, my goodness, if you're Jeffrey Lurie looking down saying, this is it? This is it? This is all we have? This is the defense? I thought there would be more. I was told there'd be more. You could see Lurie yelling over at Roseman in the press box. Hey, come here for a second. You come here. We got to talk. He told me what happened? What happened to all the big blockbuster explosions and the car chases and the shootouts? You promised me all of the flair. Rather have Ric Flair out here than this. It's embarrassing to see this defense allow quarterbacks to do whatever they want. And Jonathan Gannon has proven that he can't help himself. Nick Sirianni for 2 straight weeks has established an identity. Jalen Hurts in this offense for 2 straight weeks established an identity. Jonathan Gannon couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself. He went right back just as soon as he got out against Detroit, because you want to know why? It was on autopilot against Detroit. It's easy. When you're getting blown the hell out or you're blowing the hell of some team out, it's easy. When you have to work for it, when you have to adjust, when you have to change things up, that's when it gets bad. Jonathan Gannon, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You've got somebody up front in Fletcher Cox who has called you out publicly. This guy was on a Super Bowl winning defense. What are you doing? All right, let's bring the crew back. We're going to have to figure out a name for this here, but let's bring Matt and Evan back. Matt Mullin, Evan Macy back. You see at Matt_Mullin, at Evan_Macy, Philly Voice, where you could read everything that they put together each and every day. Gentlemen, let's look at what happened not only Sunday, but also across a 2-game stretch here. And that's kind of where I want to begin. So overall, we try and each and every week figure out what we've learned, what we can take away. And it's always one game week to week in this league, depending on the matchups and all. But I am curious, Evan, Matt, we could start with you, Evan, go into it with Matt as well. What over the last 2 weeks do you think your biggest takeaway is that you've learned about this football? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and add Detroit into this close loss against the Chargers and ask what you've really learned about this football team over that stretch. Go ahead, Matt. You start.
Sure.
Uh-oh.
So
did we lose Evan?
Uh-oh.
No, we got you.
Worked last time.
We got you. Yes.
Yeah, I'll start. So, I mean, my one thing over, like you'd said, over the last 2 weeks, I think and I wrote this down during the game, I think we're seeing Nick Sirianni grow a little bit. I think we're seeing him realize some things that are working and some things that aren't working, and we're seeing him now stick with some things that are working, at least against teams that they should be working against, right? And we're not seeing the same thing from Jonathan Gannon. I think the defense has not been improving, if not in execution, definitely not in game planning. It's been very vanilla. He's basically been taking quarterbacks who are good at completing short passes and daring them to try to do it. Now, we didn't see that last week against Detroit, and they went right back to it this week. So, that's not the direction you want to see from a first-year guy.
I left the game today thinking that I left a real football game, which doesn't sound like much, but I feel like in watching the Eagles this season, they haven't, for lack of a better way to put it, been a real football team, if that makes sense. Take away that big win against the Falcons to open the year, which took everybody by surprise. And every other game, really, there's just been some humongous deficiency that we've left the game being really disappointed in. And obviously, there's a lot of things that were bad in this game. The pass rush was almost non-existent. Some players made some mistakes at key times. But Hurts was really good late in the game. They ran the ball. The defense it bended but didn't break on those fourth down stops in the first half, which were huge in keeping them in the game. There are a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, almost an equal number of both. And it was an entertaining game that they had a chance to win. And I don't know, it felt like entertaining real football, and that was my main takeaway.
Yeah, I think we've been kind of asking for that, right? All year, which is give us some consistency, show up like you have a game plan, and then stick to what works. Don't abandon it after you put up 7 against the Raiders and then watch them put up 30 straight. Like, keep something intact. And I'm with you. And I'm sure it's happened earlier in the season, but I don't remember feeling as tight with my stomach, like the knot in my stomach as this game's winding down, that feeling, that tingle in your neck. I mean, I felt like it was real football, to your point, Evan. Like, we were watching a game that mattered, even though in the grand scheme of things, Matt, we're still looking at this team kind of like expecting them to grow and all. Just, it felt good. It was like a jolt of reality mixed into a season that's just been talked about, just looking ahead, looking ahead, looking ahead.
Right, and I think we're about to get into the stretch of games that all season long everyone had been looking ahead to. They're like, this is where they can make up some ground. This is where they can win some games in a row. And now, the last 2 weeks, I know they lost today, but they seem to be playing, aside from the Falcons game, some of their better football that they've been playing all year.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And it was just this, you didn't know it was going to happen. You didn't have the feeling in the back of your head where, oh, it's the Chargers, oh, it's the Chiefs, they're not going to be able to keep up with them, or oh, the Raiders are trouncing them, or oh, they're playing this team or that team, and we know what the script is going to be. It was kind of like an unwritten script, and it was fun to watch. And I know a lot of people are going to leave this game feeling down about the Eagles. They let it slip away, etc. But I actually feel good about this team, maybe better than I did then after the Lions game, just because of what they were able to do there, and they adapted and they entertained. And I'm more hopeful now than I was a week ago, if that is believable.
I'll tell you what makes the most sense about that statement, and I think, Evan, you feel this way as you just laid it out. Matt, I don't know how much you feel this way, and this is why I cheated and asked about the last 2 weeks, is because for the first time, I feel like and this is how crazy and low the bar has been set, but for the first time all season, for 2 straight weeks, we have a team that's been consistent and has shown us a consistent identity on offense. Completely different games, the flow of it, the script of it, as far as being up a gigantic amount against Detroit versus being in a really tight dogfight against the Chargers. And still, when you look at the box scores, they're pretty equal as far as what you got on offense. That's consistency, and that's something that we haven't had at all week in and week out. And that's what I think gives me the most hope on offense. And then there's defense, which I have absolutely no hope with whatsoever, because this guy can't help himself. I don't know what it is about Gannon, but Matt, you mentioned it, like, he can't help himself. Sirianni, 2 straight weeks of improving an identity, and Gannon goes right back to it after that Detroit game.
Yeah, it's really disheartening. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the, 2 weeks in a row, some consistency, them starting to stack some positives on top of each other here. And I think one of those things is, just aside from them running the ball more, which we needed to see just from a pure football perspective, you're never going to win games without having any threat of a run game. When you're rushing the ball 2 or 3 times in a game, you're just not going to win that way. But now I think more than just that, we're starting to see them figure out who Jalen Hurts is and what kind of system they want to run with that. Evan and I were talking earlier during the game, and he had said, it seems like that, they might be giving up on the Jalen Hurts is a traditional quarterback idea that they had started the season with, and they're starting to realize, let's limit his throws to 20 or so a game and let him run more, and us as a team run the ball more, kind of more like what the Ravens do, which I think we had mentioned last week was kind of what we were expecting coming into the year. And I think it took Sirianni 2 months, but I think he's finally figured it out.
Yeah, I guess my dad used to say that he wished that he could tell me what mistakes I was going to make before I make them, keep me from feeling pain. And it's almost like this Eagles team, we pretty much knew all of this. as the season was unfolding, why don't you try to do this? It's probably what's best for the team. And Sirianni, I guess, had to just get to it on his own time. It's really interesting because really nothing's changed. Run the ball. Don't rely so much on Hurts. All of the things that we were saying all along when he was throwing 35 passes in a game and they were trying to outduel Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what do you expect?
It's insane. And real quick, Matt, I'll just to direct it back to you. I don't know. I don't trust that we're out of the woods yet either. I could easily see him reverting back to this nonsense against Denver, like it didn't happen. To his credit, it's 2 straight weeks of Jonathan Gannon not doing that, where Sirianni has, but I'm not sold that it's changed either. And that's what makes Evan's point even more maddening, is that Sirianni could easily go back to doing what we've all been telling him not to do, even after he did what we told him to do, and it worked.
Right, and that's exactly what I was going to say is, last week, it was against Detroit. They were up big. Of course, they stuck with the run. They had to stick with the run. They weren't going to start throwing the ball up 30 points. This week, they start passing a little bit. Then they go to the run and they stick to it. And this week, it's going to be, is that because he's really turned a corner, or because they were going up against the NFL's worst rush defense,
right,
and they knew that was the way to go? And now, as soon as they face a defense who is even maybe more middle of the road, will they revert, like you said, right back to what they were doing before?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm also very interested to see. I mean, I know we had that early season Cowboys game in Dallas, but to really see the meat of the NFC East and to see Sirianni in games that he'll be expected to win against these division rivals, I'm very interested to see how those go, because I could see them running the table, winning all 5. And I also could see them just completely collapsing and going 1-4 in these division games. Both of those are scenarios that I could see happening. We really haven't seen Sirianni in that situation. It's going to be fascinating in 2 weeks when they play the Giants.
All right. Give me one name, not Jalen Hurts, not Nick Sirianni. Can be anybody. If you want to look on defense, there are a couple of obvious names, and I'll leave them up to you on offense, that really stood out and made you happy today. Again, as much as we killed Jonathan Gannon, maybe there is a bright spot you'd want to find. Matt, why don't we start with you? Evan, we'll end with you. A name other than Hurts/Sirianni that really was a bright spot today.
I know it wasn't all perfect from this group today, but I thought I saw, with Eric Wilson being out of here, I mean, TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor made a couple nice plays, but I thought specifically TJ Edwards made a few really nice tackles. He had a couple on 3rd and 4th down that were just really big plays. One hit he had, I think it was on Keenan Allen on a 3rd down stop, that just looked like something like you would see from Dawkins. Typically you would see Keenan Allen catch that, spin off the guy, lean in 2 yards and pick up the 1st down. And he just stops him dead in his tracks. And I thought he had a good game today.
Matt was very creative with his answer. I'm going to
go
forward. Devonta Smith is really good. He caught 5 of 6 targets
for you, obviously.
He teed me up. He caught 5 of 6 targets. He had over 100 yards. He had that touchdown that he dove for. A pass that's 10% better gives him a 2nd touchdown from Jalen Hurts earlier in the game. He's the real deal. He can just shimmy his head and become open. I'm really excited to see what he can do, and maybe the Hurts connection will do better, or maybe they bring in someone next year who can find him more often. But a very big bright spot for Devonta Smith.
What a sacrifice that was by Mullin right there, to just leave you with green pastures to run down the field like Devonta Smith.
You said we couldn't use Jalen Hurts and stuff, so I was like, I'm going to go defense. I'm going to go defense. I trashed the defense earlier. Let me give someone a shout out.
That works. Thanks, fellas. We'll do it again next week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, let's look at our 3 big takeaways from Sunday's tight loss to the Chargers. Number 1, Jalen Hurts, first and foremost, was not accurate, not nearly as accurate as he needed to be in the first half, and clearly that was a problem. It was something that spoke, I think, glaringly to issues that we've seen throughout the season, where we want him to improve in his accuracy. We don't want to be the reason why this team loses because he can't complete a simple pass. And he was missed to Dallas Goedert. It was brutal. It was awful. But look what happened in the second half. Tight drives, including the drive to tie the game. everything that changed in the second half was for the better with Jalen Hurts. And I think as much as we want to see improvement and we ask that they strive for that improvement on the field, we saw that. We saw that from the first half to the second half. And part of this takeaway here with Jalen Hurts is just how deadly he is on the ground. My goodness, he makes up for any mistake that we see. He makes up. And it was huge to see that play out the way in which he was able to stay in the game with his feet and not be a detriment, not be an issue, even in the first half when he wasn't able to complete passes. So it was insane across the board and cool, I think, at times to watch Jalen Hurts dig himself out of the hole that, look, I don't think he himself created, but definitely with the inaccuracies in the first half, not a problem in the second half. Huge takeaway there. Number two, I have to be honest. We all have to be honest when we're critical on one hand and that person or that entity that we're critical of flips things around. Look at the difference of Nick Sirianni. This wasn't a fluke like last week where we thought, Detroit, just raise our hands up in the air and chalk it up to Detroit being so bad. This was legit. Nick Sirianni called a good game. The game plan was there. He utilized different people throughout the field, and it wasn't a bunch of gimmicks and gadgets. And oh, by the way, Nick Sirianni not only ran the ball, but also showed commitment to running the football. Very cool, very refreshing to see because we didn't know what to expect after such an easy game script against the Lions where it just demanded that you run heavy, insisted that you run heavy. And look what we got. A huge difference. And that's that second takeaway, which is Nick Sirianni showed the growth he was talking about from week to week. Nick Sirianni implemented that and stuck to that run game. Humongous for him to do that. And I think we all benefited as a result. It was really nice and refreshing to see that. And that's why that second takeaway is thumbs up to Nick Sirianni. Wear whatever the hell shirt you want this week. You didn't win the football game, but you showed me more in a loss than we've seen throughout the season. And that was a huge takeaway for me. Also, third and final, what's going on with this defense? What's happening with this defense? They're soft once again. They don't blitz Justin Herbert, allow everything possible in front of them. And ultimately, it was the reason why they couldn't get off the field. This is inexcusable. Well, what's happening here? Where are we at this point where you can't even trust the defense to put pressure on a quarterback? And my goodness, force Justin Herbert to do something under pressure. Don't expect that you can keep Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler and then that tight end position in front of you for so long. No. Beyond frustrating. Jonathan Gannon really ruined the moral victory. Jonathan Gannon is the reason why you can't celebrate by any means. That's three big takeaways. Two good, one awful. And blame Gannon. Blame the defense once again coming up soft because they were coached that way. And it's getting me sick to my stomach having to watch this each and every week.